I want to start with this. Everybody on this call, especially the speakers, and I can't see who else is on the call. It is amazing to think that we're actually on this call today, because I can go back multiple years with conversations with everybody here. And it all started for me. I was an executive at CNL back when I was 40, had a back surgery, and I won't go through the whole thing other than to say I woke up after back surgery and I just saw the world different. And actually through Tim and through Todd Harper, really challenged my wife and I, and they probably didn't even know they were challenging us, but it just in being around them, what does it mean to be a steward of our time, talent, and treasures? And so I thought I had answered that multiple times, but God put us on another trajectory. I left traditional finance to go after this whole impact investing space. So we created Common Good back in 2017. And really the idea was, how do we help investors think about what it means to be a steward of their taxable or of their investment capital? So that's really the way we started. And then what you find is what we do can be transferable, because these are impact investments that also can go into donor advised funds, for example. And so there's this whole world out there that most do not have access to, because it's still early on, it's cumbersome. So we go out and we source and due diligence all different types of impact funds. So think of private equity, real assets, so real estate, infrastructure, private credit, which you're going to hear a little about today. And then, of course, you have the wealth advisors and investors. And what we've seen is that there's this ever-growing demand, and it's changed dramatically in a real positive way, even in the last year. And people want access to impact funds. But if you look in the middle here, there's this Rubik's Cube. This is an investment. I mean, you can lose money, you can have bad impact, or vice versa. So what we specialize is in going in and due diligence, looking at the risk and reward, looking at the operational, helping people set up funds. We actually have some of our own funds as well, educate, and there's a lot of regulatory regimes that we have to be considerate of. But ultimately, what we're trying to do is funnel impact opportunities or impact funds, whether you want to do that through your charitable capital or you want to do that through your taxable capital. So let me just step back for a second, because we could talk for literally 5 hours on what does impact mean, what does it not, and so let me just paraphrase how I and we at Common Good view it. So first is the why. We started a stewardship position, and you're going to hear all different scriptures that I could quote in here, but I think we all agree that we're stewards of our time, talent, and treasure. So that's the start for us. Ultimately, what we're trying to create is human flourishing, and you can define that multiple ways. I talk to both faith-based and non-faith-based, but for me, there's a joy and freedom and peace that comes out of that, not only for the investor, but for those who the capital is going to. This coin, which is probably not a great example of a coin, this is something I want to just take 15 seconds and talk about, because most of the world talks about impact investing, about the problems that it can solve, which is wonderful. We're called to do that. And you're going to hear all those different themes today. But the other side of this that I actually am drawn to this, and the self is what we typically talk about in philanthropy or charity. But I would tell you, start to allocate some of your own investment, taxable capital towards others, towards impact. And there's a joy and a freedom that I had not experienced. I mean, not ultimate joy and freedom, but around my finances, that's why I jumped into this, because I want people to experience that same thing. Now, when you jump over to, okay, so what does it mean to impact invest? How do you do that? The first thing is you need to define the financial return. You've already heard about this. It can be concessionary. It can be market rate. You really want to be with somebody who's intentional about this impact. They are not just, it still is impactful, even if they're not meaning to. But for us, we want managers who are specifically setting goals. They're measuring them, and then they're reporting out on it. It's not just a hope it works. It's no, this is intention in addition to the return, what we're trying to drive or trying to change, whether that's spiritual, whether it's environmental, whether it's social. And so here's just a broad-based, I'm going to give you some themes. And then what I'm going to do is go through really quick. And I just want to paint a picture of some actual investment opportunities, because often what we find is that in the absence of information, people just don't even know how to dream about this stuff. So under real assets, I'll just name a couple. Workforce housing, which I'll talk on today. renewable energy, organic farming, just to name a few. On the private equity side, you have sustainable farming, values-based VC, so sovereigns, which I think a number of you probably are familiar with. That's what they do. Actually, sustainable fashion is another big one. And again, it depends where your value set and what's important to you. And then on the private credit side, which is lending money to non-public companies. And these can be larger companies or they can be very small companies. And you can see some of the themes there as well. Remember, these are investments. And so there are risks with these investments. And I would just say high level, there's loss of capital. There's loss of all your capital in theory, depending on how much risk you're taking. Most of these are illiquid. And so you just need to be mindful that underwrite these as an investment, which is exactly how we view it. So we're going to fly through these fairly quickly, but I just want to paint a picture of like real funds, and I'm not going to give the specifics of them, that are out there generating real returns today. So a huge need in the United States and frankly the world is affordable housing. And I could get into the technicalities, but I'll just say this. In America alone, there are about 7 million units short for affordable housing. So that's units. So then obviously that's more people now. That's 7 million people who do not have access to safe, clean homes. And here I'm really speaking more so about multifamily. And so, you look at different scripture where it says, take care of those who are in need, the poor and the needy. What a better way than to provide this for individuals? Obviously, housing is foundational to so many things. In fact, there's plenty of studies that will show the zip code that you grow up in, the house that you grow up in, or your shelter has a huge determination of how you end up in the future. So that is one, for example, that typically generates cash flow and has a total return aspect to it as well. So private credit, this is a very big theme, but we work with a fund and you can just see where it says the sectors up there. This would be a well-diversified fund that is loaning capital to small to mid-sized companies in Latin America, Southeast Asia, emerging Europe, sub-Saharan Africa, across all different types of, whether it's agriculture, whether it's fashion. But what you find here is that it's estimated that capital for these types of businesses, there's over $4 trillion shortfall in capital for them. So you can be a part of that solution for them, which obviously has a huge impact on the quality of life, job, and all that kind of stuff. Meanwhile, you can generate a very competitive return as well. So that's an example of another investment that will be out there. So here's another unique one. And actually what you'll see is David, who's going to speak later. In fact, it's funny, all of our worlds overlap. There are some similarities to what he does here. And actually my brother's in Africa and we've got a fund. And so a lot of collaboration here. But there's over 2 billion individuals in the world who do not have access to the financial systems. It creates a myriad of problems. And so this is a fund specifically focused on loaning capital to what are called SMEs, which are micro, small to medium enterprises. And so this picture up there, this motorbike, there's an example where you can invest in a company that loans to these entrepreneurs, these motorbikes. Turns out that they can double their income and they actually can own the motorbike, which traditionally they would be lending from the local tribe leader, as an example. This is an $80 million fund. This is real capital that's going into this fund. It is led by $28 million of institutional capital. And so you actually have the opportunity to come alongside of real solid investors who also have a heart for impact. So full transparency, my brother and I are working on this. My brother lives in Rwanda. David, I think you said you talked to my brother. I think you said today. Just a few bullet points here. 600 million Africans do not have access to power. That's like almost twice the size or the amount of people here in America. When you don't have access to power, the impact on housing, health, business, spiritual development is massive. And so we are creating a fund in small scale renewable energy where you go out and I'll give you this picture in front of you. It's called run of the river hydropower. You divert a portion of the river for only a short period of time. It ends up coming back in the river. It ends up running through those tubes that you can see, goes through turbines and creates electricity. And then the last one is just to even give you a snippet of what's out there. We're working with a group right now. The average assisted living facility across the United States costs a residence about $4,700 a month. There's a huge swath of the population that cannot afford that. And so this is a group who is developing affordable seniors housing, which means that the average resident can pay between $2,700 and $3,000. Which opens up a huge swath of the population that can be served. All of these have the ability to have heavy faith integration. Some of them aren't specifically Christian, but would align with the value set. So anyways, that's just a smattering of what is out there. There's plenty more, but it's really exciting. And I would imagine as you start investing in this, there'll be a joy and freedom, not only to look at the returns, but also the impact that you have.